Everyone can hear me, right?
Yep, you're good.
All right, perfect. Alrighty, I'll go ahead and start then. For anyone who doesn't know, my name is Wolf. I am the studio director and CEO at Watercress. We've been making games for a little over 4 years at this point. We have 8 releases, and we're pretty well known for having a really large team and doing really large projects for NaNoRenO. A few other talks here have been from members of our studio as well, like Cypher and Tootie are 2 big ones. Tootie has been contributing to development of the Demon Girls games quite a bit, alongside our other games. In terms of the talk structure, I'm going to try to go through this talk a little bit faster to have more time for Q&A, since there's so much I could talk about for a project this large that I'd rather just have people ask me questions about what happened. So we'll just go to the how, the why, and what was learned, and then we can go to Q&A. In terms of Cautionary Tale, that's the name of the game. It's a collection of 3 different games put into one engine. Beyond Yesterday's Grasp, Let Go, and If in Your Dreams, The Flood. Each had their own unique set of teams. There was a different art team for all 3, a different music team, and a different writing team. And each of them were led by individual project directors, and I was the overarching project director for the entire collection, alongside being the individual project director for Let Go. And yeah, Foamy is a bit biased because Foamy made a very large portion of Let Go's music, and that was fantastic. Thank you. So to go through the steps, we started concepting. So as at Watercress, we always get everyone in the studio, if they want to put forward proposals for what game or what IP they want to work on for NaNoRenO. This year, we had 13 of them, and we wanted to restrict ourselves to certain requirements for NaNoRenO. The big one for me was we wanted to limit each individual game to 20,000 words or less. And later on, we decided that 3 games with 20,000 words or less was a really good guideline for us. So after proposals, we went into voting. Everyone in the studio got to vote on which proposal they thought was really cool. 3 were dominant, which are the 3 over here. And then we went to the decision, and we decided, you know what? Fuck it. We're a pretty big studio. We have, a bunch of other studios collaborating with us. We might as well make 3 games. It'll be a pretty fun learning experience for us. And we like hurting ourselves when it comes to developing, because our home last year in 2017 was 80,000 words and fully voice acted. So this year we're like, you know what? Let's do 3 games. Fuck it. So after that decision, we went to outlining, which we do for every single NaNoRenO. Like our home, we outlined from January through March to prepare for the stress that we're going to be going through, because there's no way we can make 3 games in 1 month without outlining first. Step 2 was how we're going to structure the game for the jam itself. As I mentioned before, we had 3 sub-teams with art, music, and writing in each team, and then a common team of coding, voice acting, and editing alongside it that ran in parallel. And each team was led by a game director, and there were an art director, a coding director, and a music director alongside that to help me manage the overarching project, and then me at the top with a project director. So this was definitely a big struggle for us, trying to fit 3 parallel developments together. And we did a pretty good job of our structuring and management. Watercress is pretty anal about how we do our management. So we at least had a good amount of practice for that. So I'll get into detail on the issues of our structure in the future. So for step 3 on how, I went for deadlines. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the status sheet for us. I'm not going to go through it all, but I'm going to show you guys what it looks like for us to do the status sheet. It is all of this. We have writing outlined, we have art, music, and coding, all the way down to our credits. And we have our asset deadlines and releases, all of this stuff. We have all of this outlined. I think it was made in December. Yeah, even earlier December. So we have the stuff outlined pretty far in the future. We gave each team roughly 2 weeks to do the stuff they could. So writing had 2 weeks, music had 2 weeks or so, art had 2 weeks. And generally speaking, that worked pretty well. But obviously the pipeline for voice acting, as I've kind of mentioned before, was rough, was very rough. And we expected to move deadlines the entire time, so that happened quite a bit. But it's something that we know that we're gonna have to do. And the step 4 was the release itself. The crunch time was definitely the worst. We had very little sleep towards the end, but I made sure to keep reminding everyone to feed themselves, water themselves, make sure they get some help. And it wasn't too bad up until the end with scripting for voice acting. That was definitely the part that's really hard to do for us. And we also had SoccerCon at the very end of the jam. So with myself, Echo, and Alk leaving, so some of our directors being gone, we definitely had some issues getting the scripting done at the end. And also due to the size of the game, thank God for itch having no cap for us. If you make enough games, you can ask them and they'll remove your cap, and you could do some direct releases and stuff, which is really nice for us. And for post-game support, we did basically none because we were so burnt out on the project that we decided we'll just remaster the game for Steam later on. It's fine. So that's how we did it. In terms of why we did it, it really can be boiled down to wanting to show off everyone's work. We gave the studio some agency over what they want to show. We got everyone to vote on what they liked the most. It's a new IP. People tell their own stories. And also, it's a good learning experience for us, especially for how to manage asset creation, because all of our assets were made in the month of March, or in the month of NaNoRenO. Every single asset. We had some, the stuff we did before that were like scene outlines, which didn't have any text that directly went into the scenes at all whatsoever. So trying to fit all of the asset creation was the big issue. And without the ability to do outlines before the jam itself, we would not have been able to release our games. And you definitely always outline for something like this. Even if you are making a small game for NaNoRenO, a lot of studios outline ahead of time because a lot of the jam is about, pushing yourself to make assets together and to put it into a game together. Thanks, Ajnan. A lot of the jam is all about putting assets together and working with a team and, the crunch time at the end. So definitely get the outlines out of the way first, since that's pretty standard anyways. In terms of structure and management, we wanted to have at the top a project director that can focus on strategy and the big picture stuff, like a full game release. So it's basically the producer and the lead developer. And then underneath me, we have the art, coding, and music directors. They have been doing their jobs for a long time. So having their experience to lead those aspects of the game allowed me to focus on the strategy itself, and they could focus on the music. And the game directors are your middle management to ensure that each individual game is being developed in time. And the 3 sub-teams are to divide and conquer. In terms of deadline management, we made some pretty clear deadlines. And the pipeline we had to be very careful of because voice actors cannot start until writing is done. and we definitely were late on some of our stuff, which I'll get into later for sure. But we eventually made it. And obviously moving deadlines is important. In terms of crunch time, we always have unforeseen circumstances. There were some members of the jam that went AWOL or had to drop out mid-jam, and it's not really anyone's fault. So we had to work around that and having to find new people. Writing editing delays definitely pushed off voice acting a bit. And the convention overlap meant that we were kind of neutered in terms of strategy. So we had to front load all of that as much as possible. In terms of what we learned, don't make 3 games in 1 month. It's fucking awful. I wanted to die, and so did everyone else on the team. It is rough, and there's a lot to learn from it, and it was really, really amazing to do, but it's not fun. NaNoRenO should be about fun, and while there are a lot of parts we found really fun, for management at least, it was not so fun. Expect dropouts and AWOL members, especially with a team of 60 people and 10 different teams working, or 10 different studios working together. Some people will drop out. It's a fact, so just expect that. In terms of documents I showed, we had instructions, and some of them were misunderstood or people didn't realize they were a resource that was there. So we need to make sure that we follow the instructions and make sure you write instructions that cannot be misunderstood. Don't write instructions to be easily understood. They cannot be misunderstood. So make sure you focus on that in terms of leadership. After the jam, some of the members made a document of issues they saw, and from a leadership perspective, reading it, it's pretty obvious, and something that I learned after the jam is that the average member sees the tip of the iceberg, while the management gets to see the other half of it. So obviously take into account the issues people see, but be very transparent about why certain issues happened, because it's very easy to misattribute certain things. Especially with a project of this, magnitude and this many moving parts. And post-jam morale is really important. When this jam was over, we basically took an entire month off from Watercress because it was rough for all of us. In terms of what we learned, part 2, make sure you give leadership guidelines to follow. If all of the project or game directors have a different workflow for each of the games, it's only going to confuse things, and the game is going to, not come together really well. So in the future, I'll definitely work on, making sure there are guidelines that are a lot more clear and not easily misunderstood. Also, what happened is a bit of jumping of chain of command, which you will see happen in projects this large. It's just going to happen, but trying to impress upon the fact that you shouldn't jump chain of command. It's there for a reason, and if you jump chain of command, things get very easily lost in translation. If you are an artist working on something, you shouldn't go directly to me, and you shouldn't go directly to like the music director or whatever. You should go directly to your game director and then to the art director. Or else people will not know what's going on and you won't be able to keep track of everything. The next is probably the most important one for Watercress as a studio. And we do have an organizational chart. That is definitely a thing we have. We have a few, for sure. Establishing a healthy atmosphere is Watercress's it's our most important aspect to our studio. It's what we focus on the most out of anything. We see ourselves as a community and as a studio first, and a place that makes games second. So our company culture is what we strive to have as being very strong. So making sure you have a healthy atmosphere so people aren't afraid to talk about things is very important. And on the other side, you want to make sure that people focus on the necessary first. If there is scripting that needs to be done, people should be doing that rather than, say, implementing something that's optional and fun. Because while that fun stuff is really cool, it won't get you a release. So make sure that everyone is doing the foundation of the game first before you work on the painting of the house, stuff like that. Next one is something that we didn't use, but we will use in the future. Is something called burn down charts. They basically are a way of having leadership show the rest of the studio where you are in development, how much you have left, and if you're going to hit that goal. A big portion of this game jam that was rough for us is that the average member didn't really know how steady we were and how well we were towards release. So burn down charts, 10 out of 10, please use them. And lastly, be transparent. And from being an average member to being leadership, and everywhere in between, you want to communicate everything you do. Over communication is infinitely better than under communication. So make sure that every decision you make is being communicated to the people who need to know. And if you're leadership, you need to make sure that people know why you are doing what you do. If you just make actions without telling people why, people might get the wrong idea. People might be confused by what's going on, stuff like that. So make sure you're always telling people exactly why you're doing what you're doing. In terms of the last slide of this is the highlights. One of our artists was getting married mid-jam, which was definitely really fun to work around. Thankfully, with our large size, we were able to have people rotate. And obviously, Watercress's motto is life comes first always. So we were not about to get in the way of someone getting married, of all things, Getting married is more important than release, for sure. And yeah, Anagram front-loaded a fuck ton. In fact, if you want to go all the way up, Anagram's one that did this background. Anagram is it's pretty fucking fantastic, just saying. In terms of more highlights, Echo, the coding director, and myself were in the same house or in the same apartment for 2 weeks of it because I flew to Idaho. So Echo and I got to combine our development really well for that. Having the project director and the coding director together to work on stuff was very helpful for us. And on average, I would drink about 32 ounces of coffee a day and probably about 20 ounces of Coca-Cola a day in order to get this thing out. So I probably got some form of diabetes from that, but I had to survive. And Echo probably did around the same. He's not a big coffee drinker like I am, but he drank a lot of soda for sure. And we had a lot of new processes for this game jam, obviously. It is a pretty big amount, especially if you consider that it's like all espresso and shit. But yeah, Echo had to manage new processes like our animated like blinking sprites and stuff. And caffeine pills. Moving on. Echo had to manage some new processes like new sprite workflows and stuff that we didn't expect to happen, but we ended up implementing anyways because people thought it was fun, so we did. It was really fun working with a close friend and another director at the studio, and made things a lot easier. I can definitely say that NaNoRenO would not have gone as well as it did without him and I in the same room. Someone I've mentioned a lot and 2D mentioned is Sandra, our voice acting and art director. Sandra basically single-handedly carried the voice acting of the game. She and I did all of the casting, and she did one-on-one in-person or like over Discord call voice acting sessions with all of the voice actors for all 3 games. So hats off to her for doing all of that herself. Kev is a person we work with in another studio, and he had to stand in as the director for Flood. So it was interesting having to replace one of the directors right at the start of the game jam and working around that and having a new workflow. I'm probably going to skip a couple of these, except for the MC sprites, which I think is important for people who are here looking to make games. Originally, we were not going to sprite the main characters, but one of the writers and someone who was working really closely with one of the game directors adamantly wanted main characters to be sprited. And while I knew that main character spriting would be a mistake, I decided that NaNoRenO is a great learning experience, so I could show people who are less experienced why we do certain things. So they got to see that that having to draw all the main characters is rough enough, but having to script all the main characters for all 3 games was very rough. So people got to experience that and got to understand why certain things are being done. In terms of screaming, yes, a lot of screaming. For cat pictures, this is Ginger's cat, our old marketing director. I did gloss over M-Dash's cipher. If you want to go into it over the break, feel free, but that is your story, not mine. But yeah, so this is Ginger's cat. We don't get paid in exposure in Watercress, we get paid in cat pictures. And Ginger's cat basically is the other carry of the project, you know. People were given strength and determination whenever they saw one of Ginger's cat pictures, and they're posted pretty often. So hats off to Ginger for keeping us alive with her cat. And we even made a little logo with the cat in the middle of it because again, Ginger's cat, fucking MVP of the game. And that is my really quick, you know, lightning chat through the game jam. If people have any questions, definitely now I'm gonna take them. Maybe all through break if Ajinyan lets me.
Sure. Well, it'll be open talk, so we can totally be like, I saw this talk, and the first thing, like, this was the #1 talk that I wanted to show because my reaction to this was why? Just why?
Yeah, so I kind of rushed through it a bit, but I can talk about why a bit. We, other than liking to die, we like to work with other studios. We're just very big into working with other people. So we're like, you know what? Watercress has 3 years of NaNoRenO. You know, we did 80,000 words last year. Fuck it. Let's try something dumb and get as many people in on it as possible and make it, you know, as ridiculous as possible, and then, you know, show the world that, well, fuck, you can actually do it. And go ahead, sorry.
Like, it's one of those things where you, like, it's ridiculous, but you do it, and then the next time, like 3 years down the road, you're gonna come with a project. It's gonna look hard. Like, people around you are gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is impossible." Like, guys, I've done this before. This is nothing.
Yeah, I don't think Watercress will ever have a harder dev period than this one. Like, even 10 years down the road, when we're making, you know, the most popular games on this planet, I don't think we'll ever have something this rough.
Yeah, and it's going to show in how you plan your other projects. Like, you've been through hell, you kind of know how to head things off now. So the experience is actually what I feel is worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And introducing new people to NaNoRenO is really fun too. A lot of the studios we worked with had never done NaNoRenO before. So getting them in the community, and the fact that many of them are going to do it again this year, probably separate from us, is really nice because we get to bring in people and you know, bring people in the community. Because to us, NaNoRenO is less about the game and more about getting people involved with the greater EVN community as a whole. So the spirit really is in the community building for us.
Cool. All right. We have a 10-minute break. We can continue doing questions, but people who want to, like, run to the bathroom or everything, get that squared away, go right ahead. We can start talking about the love of M-Dashes, I think.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, everyone's welcome to use the mic. Go ahead, go.
If it was biologically possible, I would carry M-Dash's children.
Anyway,
Oh man.
what I was going to say is that,
are just our savior.
during NaNoRenO, what happened was, so the way I do things is I was lead editor, and there were 2 other editors working under me. But one of the writers on one of the games was very particular about her. Basically, she was going through every document and took it upon herself to change every instance of an N dash to an M dash. Now, that's perfectly fine, but it is unnecessary work for her. And I explained to her that, you didn't have to take it upon yourself to do this. It's a non-issue, and here's why. It's largely rooted in your education. So UK and parts of Canada typically teach open N dashes, which means that there's a space on either side. American punctuation typically prefers closed M dashes, which means that it's an M dash with no spaces. And this person and I had words over this to a point where I had to approach Wolf because they were, as a result of the stresses of NaNoRenO, it was very much a case of 2 people talking at each other and nothing getting done. And it felt very much as though my authority and my competency were being called into question when I had the role that I did for a reason, on top of it being a non-issue. Another prominent issue that we faced that I don't think Wolf really touched upon is people didn't ask questions when they had problems. For example, one of the people on the editing team, I was of the impression that them working in the industry for as long as they did meant that they would understand what to do, more or less. And that's my fault as a manager, that I didn't really keep a button on everything at that time. But it was very much a case of like, I had finished more or less editing 2 of the 3 games, and then this person was like, I don't know how to ensure these things. And it's like, well, you could have asked me that at the start of the month if you were unsure. And as a result of that, it created unnecessary work for me to a point where Wolf had to step in and do most of the editing work on the 3rd game.
Yeah, stuff like that happens, especially when you get people who've been around long enough. You'll have some people butting heads, Like, I've been working, on novels and stuff for 5 years. So other people, I think I'm right, Not that it's them being a bad person, is that it happens when you get some people who are really experienced in the same room and they don't exactly see eye to eye. So it was definitely a little rough to deal with, but it wasn't the end of the world. And
it was an unfortunate situation, but it was very much exacerbated by the fact that it was NaNoRenO, and like setbacks like that are very much minor are actually some of the worst, because you look at it and you go, this really shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So,
like, I have bigger things to do than address this right now and argue about it.
Some guy had a question, and especially how the teams were assigned. Everyone got to vote for which game they wanted to work on the most, and then I put the teams together that way. I shifted it slightly to make sure that all the people would work together well, but I know I talk with all of the people who work in the project relatively often. So I'm a really good judge of character in terms of that. So we didn't really have any personality conflicts at all, really, other than like some tiny things. But for the most part, Watercress is very much I'm here because I like the people I work with, not and I'm here to eventually get paid. We are the equivalent of 40 people getting together because we like each other and happening to make games. And we just happen to have been making them for 4 years, which is kind of rare. We don't earn enough money to pay everyone because our policy is to only pay when everyone can get paid. I'm not willing to individually pay people first. Like, everyone's has value, so I'm not going to devalue people by not paying them. So we do earn some money, but most of it goes to like legal fees and like maintenance stuff, like Steam and stuff like that. But we are working towards money. But right now, we get paid in cat pictures, which I think is good enough for now. I do want to tackle one of the comments by Renpai Tom actually, in terms of the spirit of the game jam. To me, the spirit of the game jam is what you make of it. To us, the spirit is about abiding by the rules in a way that allows you to introduce as many people to the community as possible. To us, that was concepting before the jam starts and then getting as many people together as possible to make the games. So it's okay to have different views on how the game jam should be run, or having different spirits of the game jam. But to us, we take the community oriented approach rather than the asset itself. Although we do abide by the rules because we don't want to be cheaters. But yeah, so that's just how we see it. It's okay to have disagreements. Oh yeah, that is something they've all brought up. Is that we forgot to turn off donations, and we ended up getting $101 in donations. So we donated all that to charity because we didn't want to pay certain people, not others, and it's a game jam game. So that was pretty fun. Just a happy accident of oh, we can donate to charity. Which I think is pretty cool. I think more game jam games should do that. I think it's a pretty good way of raising money for charity in a very passive way.
Yeah.
Do I fill the screen? I do. Oh yeah. Let me where are you? There we go. Actually, do I have there it is. Perfect. If you gave us money now, we would put it aside until we could pay everyone. Or for legal fees, yeah, because there are some important legal fees we have to do because we are an LLC, we're an actual company. So there are upkeep costs and stuff that we have to deal with. It normally comes out of pocket from me or some other people who donate, but it's definitely nice to have donations that help cover it, so we're not losing too much money. And yeah, all of the finances to public if you ever want to check it out. We're very into being as transparent as possible with everyone around us, financially and otherwise. So definitely feel free to watch us and make sure we're being ethical. And if anyone thinks we're doing anything unethical, definitely let us know. We'll look into it. Because our goal is very much to act as a game developer should, and to be as good to our people as physically possible. All right, if we're shilling, let me shill my Twitter again.
Put it in the stream. Oh wait, bingo space. Woo.
Oh god. Okay.
Typing. I'm still going to bingo.
Okay, so we still have 2 minutes, but I will give presenting mode over to the other Katie. We have two Katies. This is confusing. They're spelled different, but we have two. All right, but they can set up. They can start in a minute and whatever. That's okay. But yes, I've been drinking.
Okay.